Welcome to the Condo Web Show, the place where industry experts share their tips, advice, and help answer your questions so you can run a more efficient condo and spend less time in those pesky board meetings. On today's episode, I'll be interviewing Trinity Player, who has been an insurance broker for 18 years, and we will be discussing condominium insurance. We will talk about the biggest mistakes condo boards make when buying insurance, how a broker can help the condo board choose the right insurance policy, and if the board should be buying a policy based on price alone. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Condo Web Show. On today's episode, we have Trinity Player from BFL Canada, and we'll be speaking about condominium insurance. So Trinity, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Well, I'm Trinity Player with BFL Canada. BFL Canada is one of the largest privately owned brokerage firms in Canada. We have 13 offices and over 620 employees. And we have a very rich history. We have a 30-year history in real estate. And we wrote the very first condominium in BC.
Oh, congratulations. And you've been doing this for 18 years as well.
Yes, yeah. I started with a local brokerage here in Edmonton. I did personal lines for a couple of years. Always knew I wanted to be in commercial. And so I've been in commercial for the last 16. I focus on construction and residential realty and primarily condominiums.
You've been doing this for 18 years.
Yes.
I think you're the only professional that I know in this industry that has been doing what you're doing for so long. So tell me, what drives you in this role? What gets you up in the morning and gets you doing what you do?
Well, I really enjoy providing corporations with peace of mind that they have the insurance policy that's right for them and that they have a comfort level with understanding their insurance. And I really enjoy educating people on the importance of their insurance. And insurance is a legal and binding contract, and you can have two insurance policies. And this insurance policy has liability, property, crime, and this policy has liability, property, and crime. And each policy has definitions and terms and exclusions in those policies that either afford or deny you coverage. That language can make the difference on whether or not you're fully indemnified in the event of a loss. So I really enjoy helping boards and people navigate those challenges and give them a comfort level with understanding insurance. And there's all kinds of things that go on in the background besides just getting you a policy and placing insurance and this is your price. There's a lot of things that go on in the insurance industry that I think if corporations were aware of, they'd have a much better understanding and a much higher comfort level with their insurance purchase.
And you know what, one of the big problems that I see in the industry is when condominium boards are looking for a new policy or looking for new insurance, they rely too heavily on the property manager. Now, I'm not trying to put property managers down, but they're not experts or knowledgeable enough to advise what policy the board should basically go with, right? Usually they have somebody that they've worked with for years, they have trust built up, and they'll go to the broker and be like, hey, I have this condo, can you give us a quote on a policy?
Yeah.
And then what happens is the board just reviews it, they fully trust the property manager, which, they should trust a property manager because that person is providing them information and guiding them in the right direction. However, they don't only know the in and out of the policy. And most times, the property manager doesn't know either, right? They just rely on whatever the broker provides.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about this? Because this is a huge problem that people have to be aware of. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but you said it's a legal binding contract, so there is a liability. Not only the property manager is liable, but also the board on making the wrong decision, right? So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Right, and I understand, and property managers are not insurance experts. And on the surface, the policy can look the same, or the property manager can have their own personal bias as, they don't need that. I've had property managers tell me, I've seen corporations that have $800,000, money in their operating fund and their reserve fund, and the properties manager told me, they don't need that because they require dual signatures on their checks, or they have tight financial controls. So that's never going to happen to them. So they don't take the coverage. Crime coverage is $1,000, $1,200 a month. I mean, it varies. If it's a small condominium, it's a lot smaller. But let's say 100 unit condominium, $1,000 coverage for crime to protect those funds from fraudulent activities, and they don't take the coverage, and it would have cost the unit owners, $10 a year for that coverage. And if their funds do disappear or there's fraudulent activity, the unit owners are going to get a loss assessment for $8,000 to rebuild that reserve fund and those operating expenses to meet their capital expenditures. I've quoted on policies that it provided much better coverage than the policy that they were on, and actually the premium was significantly lower than the policy that they were on. But the property manager had a relationship with the incumbent broker, with the current broker. So they just went back to that broker and got the broker to match the premium and stayed with that policy. So, I mean, it wasn't a bad policy. It provided a lot of the necessary coverage, but the policy that the competing quote that I'd given them had so many more coverages and much higher limits, more appropriate for the condominium corporation. If something would have happened, and the unit owners the board may or may not have found out, or my quote may not have been presented, but if the board would have found out, if a loss would have happened, and it would have been covered under my policy and wouldn't have been covered by the policy that they were currently on.
The owners can come back after the board as well, right? Because the board's liable as well.
Right, it can be very messy. So, ultimately, the corporation is the one that's responsible for running the multi-million-dollar corporation, and they have duties and responsibilities to make their decisions in the best interest of the corporation, and property managers as well, and they really need to leave their personal feelings and emotions at the door and make their decisions on what's best for the corporation.
Exactly. And many boards, they don't think, their board directors, they think it's an association, but at the end, a condo is a business. You're responsible for the decisions. You're sitting at the board table. Every month, hopefully, you're having meetings and to discuss and review what's happening and to make the right decisions for the benefit of the corporation.
Another thing I would have to say, what is your broker doing? Are they just providing you with a policy and a premium once a year? What else are they doing to educate you on how the insurance industry works? What other activities are they doing to provide you with risk management advice? So that it can help reduce your severity of loss or your frequency of loss. Being proactive instead of reactive. Insurance markets, condominiums typically are not a great line of business. We had 3 insurance markets in the latter half of 2017 decide that they no longer want to insure residential condominiums.
Oh, wow.
Because it is highly misunderstood. There's a lot of claims frequency, besides the severity in natural catastrophes and aging infrastructure and other things. It's not, for every $1 that's taken in premium, $1.30 was paid out in claims. So it's not a profitable business. And boards need to better educate themselves to understand the insurance industry so we don't make the same mistakes, because we need those insurance companies to insure the risk of our financial loss.
Right. And you were speaking about education. I know that BFL, you guys provide a lot of, you're part of various events, various associations, and you're trying to educate the boards and the owners about insurance and what precautions to take. to limit claims, right? Like I know one of the largest claims in the industry is water damages, right?
Yeah,
Especially in high-rise
40%,
buildings, right?
40% of the losses.
So that's huge. Like I think it's the board's responsibility to educate their owners and residents on the precautions to take so they don't have those claims, right? Because some condos, like what's the highest deductible that you've dealt with so far on a water claim?
Oh, well, in Alberta, I would say the highest deductible I've seen is, just over $100,000.
Holy mackerel.
But they can be quite high. They
Wow.
can be a lot higher than that. So deductibles can range specifically for water damage. Normally now it's minimum $5,000, and that's if you've had no claims.
Right.
And if you've had claims, it gets higher. But they've been as high as in Alberta, $100,000 is not.
That's not peanuts,
unusual.
right?
Yeah.
And then if the condo corporation doesn't have the money in their account, in their operating account, they're going to special assess their owners to cover that expense, right? So
and it's all about education.
Exactly.
So the board educates themselves, but then you got to in turn educate the unit owners. Some of I've had a $500,000 water damage loss happen from somebody flushing a T-bone steak down the toilet. Like, who does that? Actually, in my career, I've had 2 water damage losses from somebody flushing T-bone steak down the toilet. But one of them was a $500,000. The other one was significant, but it wasn't that high. Flushing Greek salad, we've seen that. Diapers. Don't flush those, the wipes.
the baby wipes.
The baby wipes. They plug up the toilets. They plug up the systems.
It's simple education, right?
Well, if your building is sprinklered, we've had losses, seen losses where, somebody's hung one of those candelabras or whatever from the sprinkler system in their unit.
Really?
Which caused the damage.
Well, that's gonna go off like any minute, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So I think in this case the board has to be a little bit more proactive and educate their owners. Not only educate themselves, but educate their owners. And it's good to have a good broker in your back pocket, right? So they share that information, those experiences and stories with the board. So tell me, Trinity, what are some of the most important things a board should consider when hiring a broker or insurance company?
Well, it's important that your broker specializes in condominiums so that they are familiar with what is required in the Condominium Property Act and the regulations. I think it's a red flag if your broker doesn't ask to review your bylaws, because there are additional insurance requirements that may be outlined in your bylaws. It's important for them to know the claims process. Condominiums are a unique form of ownership. The claims process is a little bit different. Your broker needs to be familiar with that. And then they need to have access to an adequate number of markets. An insurance brokerage can have 30 markets, but if they only have 2 markets that write residential condominium, then that broker is only going to be able to provide you with 2 options. So they're going to be very limited on what they can provide you. And they should provide you with risk management activities and guidelines as to what activities the board can do to reduce their risk of a loss happening.
Okay, so we're talking about how the board can be proactive. If you could tell me, what are the biggest mistakes condominium boards make when looking for or buying a policy?
Well, too often I've seen boards move their insurance premium or their insurance policy from one insurance company to another without understanding what it is that they're losing in coverage. As I said, policies can be significantly different. They can, on the surface, they can both have general liability, they can both have property, they can both have crime coverage, but the definitions, the terms, the exclusions, the language used in those policies can be quite different, and that language is what is going to determine whether or not you're fully indemnified in the event of a loss. Crime coverage is a perfect example. There's policies sold out there that the crime coverage actually doesn't cover any fraudulent activities from the board members or the property managers. I have great claims examples, significant money can be stolen in a variety of ways through fraudulent invoices or, skimming off the top, and it happens over a number of years, and the board has no idea. Largest one is $20 million the property manager took over a period of time in the condominium properties that he was managing. So I think that's really important. And insurance is often a grudge buy, and people don't necessarily want to talk about their insurance. They have their own preconceived notion of what their insurance policy is going to do for them. If you are spending $50,000 and your broker is getting, $50,000 on your insurance premium, have your broker come out and explain the coverage to you. Mm-hmm. If you're getting a quote from this broker and a quote from this broker, have both brokers come in at different times, or it could be a little awkward. Have them come in and explain the coverage to you and what the advantages are of that insurance policy. Insurance is a professional service, like a lawyer. Mm-hmm. You ask important, relevant questions to a lawyer. Your insurance broker is there to provide you with the same professional service. So, get your broker to come out and explain the coverages to you.
So let me ask you this. How often should the board review the policy that they have?
Well, it needs to be reviewed annually, mm-hmm. At least, to ensure that there's no changes in operations, or you get an appraisal in the middle of the year, or you acquire more property. You want to make sure your insurance policy is increased to mm-hmm. adequately cover that off. Insurance markets don't really change that much from one year to another, and I know boards shop their insurance policies every year to get the best premium. That is also one of the reasons why insurance companies don't necessarily, residential condominiums are not their favorite thing to insure, is because they shop their insurance policies mm-hmm. every year. It costs the insurance company a lot of money to get your policy set up when you take your insurance policy out. Unless you've had, claims frequency and severity, your broker's done his best to shop the insurance market for that insurance policy in that 1 year. And, it can be so complicated because, again, it depends on the access that the insurance broker has mm-hmm. and, who he's taken the policy out to. But the insurance coverage, the insurance rates, the premiums don't necessarily change that much. Mm-hmm. They may go up slightly. 2017 was the worst year for property losses for the P&C market in history. 29, I can't even remember how much it was. Huge money. So it was a bad year. So, be prepared, because your insurance policies, everybody's insurance policies, are going to go up a little bit so that the insurance company can recover some of that. Mm-hmm. But, it's not necessary to shop your insurance policy every year. Okay. And I know you think you're doing your due diligence to ensure that you're paying the best premium, but again, you don't necessarily understand the coverage. And if an insurance policy is much cheaper than another, usually there's a reason why.
Yeah. You pretty much get what you pay for, as the saying goes, right?
Yeah. And, the problem is magnified because, brokers and property managers are insurance experts. So you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, you don't necessarily know what questions to ask. Right. So that can just compound the problem. Mm-hmm. But really engage and the advantage of a professional insurance broker is we're not lawyers. And you know what? I'll go to the board meeting. I don't charge you to go for the board meeting. You can call me up. I don't charge you for that phone call.
For a phone call.
Yeah.
So tell me, Trinity, how do you help a condominium board pick the right policy for their property?
Well, I would do a thorough review of the
mm-hmm.
policy, not only the definitions and the exclusions, but gaps in coverage, enhancements that one policy may have as opposed to another. One policy may cover it, provide certain coverages, another policy may not. So I would provide the corporation with a detailed comparison between the policies that I've quoted and work with the board so that they can make an educated decision on which policy is best for them.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned reviewing reviewing your policies because you have to review them yearly. And I guess one thing that board should really consider is when their bylaws change, they should really review their policy as well and send those new bylaws to the broker, right?
Absolutely.
Because depending on bylaws, certain policies, might be affected. So have you seen anything major change in a policy after revision of bylaws by any chance? I know
not that I can think of. I mean, the biggest thing in the bylaws would be oftentimes they require the corporation to ensure the betterments and improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Most often when I've seen bylaws change, they usually take that out of the insurance policy. I can't think of anything where it would work in the reverse.
Okay.
But
you still, anytime you change your bylaws, send them to your broker so they can review them.
Anytime you have a change, if your insurance company is providing coverage, you have a responsibility in the insurance policy to let them know of any changes, especially any material changes in risk. So, all of a sudden, the corporation is bought out by one owner and all the units are rented. That's a material change in risk. That is different than what was the information that was provided to the insurance company initially. And that, if a loss happens that can be related to that particular change, then you may have a problem getting indemnified for your loss.
Well, Trinity, I already have like 1 page of notes. I think we're going to take a little break, grab some water, and we're going to be talking about claims, the claims process, what to do during claims, who's responsible for it, and so on after the break. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Condo Web Show. Our goal is to share this information with as many condo boards, owners, and managers as possible. We would be forever grateful if you could share this episode with your friends and colleagues by simply clicking one or all of the social share buttons on this episode page. Even better, if you know someone that would benefit from this information, please send them a link to this episode. If you have any questions or any ideas for an episode, please submit it by clicking on the Submit an Episode link on the main menu. We will do our best to get an industry professional on the show to answer your questions. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the show on our website by submitting your name and email, or if you're watching on YouTube, by clicking the subscribe button. This way, you'll be reminded of upcoming episodes, and if you miss an episode, we will be happy to send you the recordings.
Welcome back to the Condo Web Show. Today we have Trinity Player from BFL Canada, and we're discussing condominium insurance. Trinity, there's one question that I want to ask you, because there's insurance brokers all over everywhere, right? The good ones, the bad ones, and in between. So how do you do things differently from others in your profession? What sets you apart and BFL?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to offer an insurance policy that's specifically designed for the needs of condominiums. So we have a policy with fewer exclusions, which ultimately provides, it gives higher limits of coverage, has fewer exclusions, which ultimately provides the condominium corporation with coverage, broader coverage that they can't get anywhere else. We have access to 15 plus insurance markets that subscribe to those wordings, which means I can easily place condominiums with large values, or I can easily find a replacement should an insurance company decide that they no longer want to insure a property because of claims frequency, or that particular company may get out of writing that line of business altogether. So we have a lot of markets that we can just easily replace that insurance company. CCI is BFL is heavily involved in the CCI boards actually all across Canada. And we provide a lot of educational seminars, lunch and learns, to educate boards and corporations on their insurance. I really like to attend board meetings to explain the coverage and answer any questions that they may have. We have an in-house claims team of 8, so those are employees of BFL, not employees of the insurance company. So you have the advantage, our clients have the advantage of professional claims handling from start to finish, that look out for the best, that provide advocacy and look out for the best interests of the corporation, and can ensure that the right adjuster is assigned to settle your claim in a professional and timely manner.
Oh, fantastic. And I've been to a few of your events that you have hosted with CCI, events for other board directors all over the city, and you guys are providing great education and information. So if anybody in our audience hasn't had an opportunity to go to one of your events, I highly recommend it. Spend the hour, invest in yourself, invest in your condominium, go to an event where BFL presents, ask questions, and they'll be happy to help you, because I've been to those events and I have asked questions and I get my answers. It put me a little bit at ease, which is a fantastic resource. Not many brokers do what you guys do, and you're putting yourself up front in the industry, and you truly are the experts in this industry. So I'm very thankful that you guys invest the time and the resources to educate boards and owners in the condominiums, so they're able to make the right decisions, and they're educated on different policies, and what questions even to ask their current broker if they're somebody else. So thank you for doing that.
Unfortunately, insurance is not a tangible project, a tangible item that, like a TV. Right. You buy the TV, you take it home, you get to experience the benefits. Unfortunately, you don't really get to find out how good your insurance policy is until you have a claim and you actually need it, and then it's too late if you haven't bought the right coverage or asked the right questions.
Exactly right. So tell me, where you mentioned the claims. So when a board wants to make a claim, okay, what should they do in an event when they have to put in a claim?
Well, the first thing they need to do is mitigate their loss. So if your pipes break, you need to shut off the water. If you're having a fire, you need to call the fire department. But my best advice to the board, because some boards have property managers, so they may have a little bit of different arrangement, and they may have protocols in place in the event of a claim. But my best advice to a board would be to be proactive rather than reactive, to have to design an emergency response plan so that they know which professionals to call in the event of an emergency, and those professionals can help mitigate that loss. Oftentimes, board members can change. Sometimes perhaps maybe the same information isn't reviewed with the board members, but maybe your board member doesn't know where the shutoffs are, or where the keys are. So I think an emergency, claims are inevitable. They really are. And, people aren't prepared because they think it's never going to happen to them, but they are inevitable. And I think the best course of action is to have an emergency response plan in place, because it is a very stressful time. It can be very stressful, and that will help make that process go so much smoother. If it's a broken part or a piece, I think they should keep that broken piece or that broken part in the event that they have an opportunity to pursue liability if warranted. It's really important that a board understands that they shouldn't lay blame for the loss. Wait till that loss is settled. Find out the circumstances of the loss. Boards can get themselves into a lot of trouble by pointing fingers and assuming who is responsible for the loss.
So don't point fingers,
right?
Which is key, right? Because it's human nature to automatically blame somebody for something.
Right.
I'm happy that you mentioned the emergency response plan. Not many boards have that in place, right? And I think it's a very important process or document or checklist, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if you, our audience doesn't have a plan such as this, if you're managed by a management company, ask them if they have a plan in place. Ask them to get a copy so you can review it, you can adapt it to your condo, share it with your board, make sure everybody's aware of it. Because as Trinity mentioned, if something happens, you know, if you have a fire or if you have a water leak, you're not going to call your broker, you're going to shut off the water or call the emergency or the emergency line.
Yeah, but you know what, brokers, we are in the business of insurance, and we have a lot, we're not claims adjusters, but we have a lot of experience with claims and the circumstances of claims and how they turn out and why. And a good broker will provide you with guidance and the tools to help you develop that emergency response plan.
Perfect. So you guys will be able to help the board develop that. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's a really key thing, key process or a plan, because as you mentioned, you know, makes things go a little bit easier. There's a lot of stress, a lot of decisions to be made, and if you have a process to follow, then you know that's going to make the process.
I just want to add too, if the board gets a statement of claim, that you need to pass that statement of claim on to the insurance company right away. That statement of claim, that gives the insurance company time to do their due diligence, gather their evidence, and respond to that claim in a timely manner.
Okay.
It's very important. There are time limits with which they need to respond.
Okay, well that's good to know. Okay, so if there's damage from within a unit, let's say a water leak, or you know, I'll just bring water leaks because that's one of the most common issues in condominiums. Who's responsible for paying for the damage?
Well, again, you know, it really depends on what your bylaws say and the type of corporation, whether it's a townhouse or a duplex, responsibilities can be different. But the Condominium Property Act does state that the corporation is responsible for placing and maintaining insurance on the common property. So let's just use an apartment style building. So the corporation is responsible for placing and maintaining insurance on the common property, and they have duties and responsibilities as per the Condominium Property Act and their insurance policy to repair the property. And so ultimately in that situation the corporation would be responsible for repairing the damage, and if the damage happens to be below the deductible, that does not alleviate the corporation of the responsibility of repairing the damage.
Okay. And now, because we're referring to the Alberta Condominium Property Act, if you are in a different province or in a different state, refer to your local acts or regulations, and hopefully they will outline that
and your bylaws.
process. And your bylaws, right? So actually, I'm happy that you mentioned the bylaws, because there's a lot of water claims going on, especially that I'm aware of. So if a claim or if an accident or damage or initiates from a unit, and then, as you mentioned, the condo corporation is responsible for the repair, can the condo corporation or the board charge back the unit owner for the deductible?
Not unless their bylaws say they can. So they can't charge back the deductible unless their bylaws state they can. And again, it depends on what the bylaws say. So the bylaws can say you can charge back the deductible to the unit owner if it's an act or omission. Their act or omission has is responsible for loss. But if it says act or omission, then that means you basically have a responsibility to prove negligence. If you can't prove negligence on behalf of the unit owner, then you can't charge back that deductible to the unit owner.
Okay.
Some bylaws will say if the loss occurs from within the unit, period, you can charge that deductible back to the unit owner. So again, it really depends. If the bylaws are silent, then the corporation cannot charge back the deductible. And then it depends on the verbiage that's used in the bylaws as to whether or not, and the circumstances of the loss, as to whether or not they can charge back the deductible.
So in this case, it would be a good idea to talk to your condo lawyer, another expert, make sure they deal with condominium law, not your general practice lawyer, whatever the case is, and ask them to review your bylaws if you can charge back the owners.
Well, your broker will,
And your broker will advise
would be
that too,
able to
right?
answer that question, yeah, based on the circumstances of the loss. Sure.
But if if your bylaws, you sometimes might have to revise your bylaws just because of that fact, right? Because there's a lot of condominiums that are basically paying for, somebody flushing a stick down the toilet, right? Or flushing diapers down the toilet, and then the condominium corporation is responsible for the repairs and all the charges.
Definitely negligence.
However, in the end, everybody that's living in the building or in the condominium, especially in a high-rise building, right, is responsible for, is paying into that.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example.
deductible.
If your bylaws say that it has to be an act or omission of the unit owner, if you one unit owner, you may be able to charge back the deductible. But if a unit owner, that particular unit owner has some sort of mental illness or disability, then it may not necessarily be negligence, and you may not necessarily be able to charge that deductible back, which goes back to, don't point fingers and assume who's responsible for the loss.
And a little bit earlier, we discussed about deductibles, and some deductibles, they range from $5,000 all the way to $100,000.
Yeah.
Now, if a condo corporation has to cover the deductible, everybody's condo fees are going up, or people are being special assessed. So, review your bylaws, especially on this topic on about chargebacks, and consult your condominium lawyer, just to make sure you as a corporation are covered. Because at the end, you're covering not only the corporation, not only the board, but everybody living in the community, right? Yeah. So we're talking about deductibles and chargebacks. Now, this is another topic that I would like to get into. The condominium corporation has to, especially in Alberta, they have to cover the damages up front, and then maybe they can charge back the owner, maybe not. So my question to you is, should an owner have their own personal insurance on the unit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, insurance is often a grudge buy, and the unit owners will think because the corporation is covering the building, talking about an apartment style condominium, that they don't need insurance. But, they can buy their own personal insurance that can cover that condominium deductible. And as you say, they can be, as we said, they can be significant, anywhere from, $5,000 to $100,000, if not higher, depending on the peril. So, yes, it's very important that the unit owner buy their own unit owner coverage for that. They also need coverage for their own personal property in the event that it gets damaged by the fire or water damage, so that they can replace their personal property and their clothes. Their own personal policy, they can get additional living expenses. So that would pay the additional expenses that it would cost them to live somewhere else in the event that their unit was untenable. If you have a major water damage loss in your unit, you're going to have to go live somewhere else for a while.
And that's something many people don't
Mom and
consider,
Dad
right?
might not want you to live with them for 6 months. So additional living expenses are very important. Your own personal liability. The corporation's not responsible for your own personal liability. Bodily injury or that you caused to a third party within your own unit. People think, well, how would that happen? But, innocent things happen. You could have a get-together, a dinner party, and somebody could fall and break their leg. And if there's rehabilitation expenses and, medical costs, they may have to sue you in order to recover that, because they can't afford, or for whatever reason, they don't have the funds to pay for that themselves. So that's very important as well.
And not many, but there are owners and residents that don't have insurance, and especially like that. That's one thing that gets me worried is they don't have insurance. And for example, if in the condominiums bylaws it states that the condominium board or the corporation can charge back the deductible, and if the deductible is $100,000 and you don't have insurance to cover that deductible, you're going to have to pay it out of your own pocket.
Right.
In one way or another, right? And that's where it gets into that becomes really scary. And for many people, paying $100,000 out of their own pocket, that would be basically foreclosure, moving out, or selling their unit, right? Right. Which is something we don't really want to get into. And
a condo unit owner's coverage would probably cost about $20, $25 a month. I mean, it's an inexpensive coverage.
Yeah, it's like
to protect you from that.
Couple 3 lattes, right? At a local coffee shop, right? So. It's something, something to really look into, and something to get on ASAP if you don't have it.
Definitely.
You know, just so you sleep better at night. Again, but it's your personal decision. But I would highly advise on getting insurance. So we're talking right now about personal insurance. Do you guys at BFL offer personal insurance to condominium owners?
We do. Actually, BFL, we do have an online platform called leoinsurance.ca. And we do offer condo unit owners coverage on there. It's very easy and simple to use. It provides a base coverage, and if you can enhance, you can increase your deductible coverage, your loss assessment coverage. You can buy higher limits of liability. If you have jewelry or fine arts, you can increase special limits, and you just pay for it and download the policy online. It's a really quick and easy process. We also have rented condo unit owners. So if you rent out your policy to a third party, it would cover you your rental income. And we also have a tenants policy on there. And I know many unit owners, if they have tenants, they don't ensure that their tenants have insurance. If the tenant that's in that unit is responsible for loss, if that tenant has insurance, the corporation can get subrogation or recovery from that tenant's insurance policy. So it's not only important to the unit owner that they can go back to the tenant in the event that the tenant's responsible for the loss, but to the corporation as well. And a tenant's policy can be as little as $15 a month.
Oh, wow.
So it offers tenant's option on there as well. And the tenant can go on there and buy it themselves, but we also, landlords, if you have an apartment building, and I know we're talking about condominiums, but if you have an apartment building and you have 20, 50, 100 units, you can actually implement a tenants program for the entire building. Oh. So you always know that as long as the tenant lives in that building, they have insurance. It's a great program. Oh,
perfect. I didn't know you guys offer that, so that's fantastic. Okay, so if you live in a condo, you're an owner, you don't have insurance, go on leoinsurance.ca, get it tomorrow. Because actually, I went on the website a few days ago, just before the interview, and I checked out. I'm like, wow, it's so simple. Like you can get it done, in 5 minutes. Yeah. Just fill out some questionnaires, and it's really, really simple. It's nothing complicated, so anybody can do it. Yeah. And you know what? You have it right away. So get it if you don't have insurance of your own. Trinity, I think those are all the questions that I have for you today. Do you have anything else to add? Did I miss anything?
No. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Fantastic.
So you did give us a few bonuses. So if you guys are listening to the podcast, I encourage you to go on our website, because what we'll provide is a couple bonuses. Why BFL? So can you tell us what that is about?
It gives you a little information on the history of BFL and how we got started and our capabilities.
Perfect.
I put the Condo Protect brochure on there, so it gives you some information on the benefits of our Condo Protect policy and the limits that we offer and the coverages that we offer. And I also gave some information with respect to the condo unit owners coverage on leoinsurance.ca.
Leoinsurance.ca. Perfect.
Yeah.
So if you guys are listening to the podcast, or if you're watching the video on YouTube or a different website, I highly encourage you to go to condowebshow.com, click on our interview with Trinity on condominium insurance, and there's going to be a section on the webpage with resources, as well as a transcript of this interview if you prefer to read it instead of listening. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us. Trinity, thank you so much for having a chat with me today. I hope you, the audience, has a little bit more of an insight about condominium insurance. As you can see, it's not a boring topic. It's something you have to get educated about. It's something you have to look into, because at the end, as a board, you guys are liable and responsible for the decision. So make sure you have the right coverage, so the owners don't come after you, or at least to make sure you don't have to special assess owners during a major claim. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching us. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Condo Web Show.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Condo Web Show. Our goal is to share this information with as many condo boards, owners, and managers as possible. We would be forever grateful if you could share this episode with your friends and colleagues by simply clicking one or all of the social share buttons on this episode page. Even better, if you know someone that would benefit from this information, please send them a link to this episode. If you have any questions or any ideas for an episode, please submit it by clicking on the Submit an Episode link on the main menu. We will do our best to get an industry professional on the show to answer your questions. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the show on our website by submitting your name and email, or if you're watching on YouTube, by clicking the subscribe button. This way, you'll be reminded of upcoming episodes, and if you miss an episode, we will be happy to send you the recordings.